Mic check.
Good afternoon, and the Committee on Appropriation is now returned from recess. We'll now continue on Bill 24-37. The panel, let me see, there's quite a few of you, but I guess you all agree that Mr. Chris Flores will go first, and then we'll start back up from the first one, right? Okay, we're good. Mr. Flores, you may go ahead and testify.
Agustin. I'd like to thank my panel members for allowing me to speak first. I only signed leave from 10 to 12, and so it's almost 12 o'clock, so I might have to extend my leave again, and my boss is right here, so thank you. You know, I've been listening all morning at 10 o'clock when I sat down, and I heard nothing but divisive comments coming from the panel up there. First, I heard there's 6 Republicans and there's only 2 Democrat senators. Well, I guess the rest can just stay home and go to sleep or not come to work. That's really uncalled for. We're all professionals here, okay? And first of all, I want to just clarify something. I'm speaking here as Christopher Camacho Flores, voter, constituent, and I live here on Guam. I vote for leaders, and I believe the people of Guam, and I'm also speaking to the people of Guam, vote for leaders. We don't vote for micromanagers. And if you want to micromanage the government, you're in the wrong business. We need leaders in the legislature to provide the funding and the resources so the governor can do her work. And I'm not here speaking on behalf of the governor or the lieutenant governor. I don't need this job. I'm a retired military officer. I make enough money. But the reason why I do this is because I want to serve the people of Guam and I want to serve the governor because she has a good heart and the lieutenant governor. But we vote for leaders in this government. And I have seen nothing but failed leadership in previous legislatures. We have 16 years of Republican rule in this island. You mean to tell me in the last 4 years, all the school problems just erupted? And nothing happened in the 16 years that we were under Republican rule? Let's open our eyes and let's speak to the facts. Let's not grandstand. Senator Boss said, oh, you were pitting the students against the government workers. No, we're not. You guys are, or he is. We're here to testify on a bill to support the raise of hard-working government employees. And I saw that during the pandemic. The first 6 months, I didn't see a senator come out to work or even say anything about the pandemic. So that's why I'm saying there's failed leadership in this legislative body. And I'm tired of that. I'm tired of comments that, oh, well, thank you for your testimony, but, I really want to make sure that the students are safe. We can take care of the students as well. But, there's more than one way to skin an elephant. And you do it one thing at a time, or one piece at a time. So all I'm saying to you guys today is, let's quit the jabbering. You guys are no longer Republicans or Democrats. You have 15 senators working for the people of Guam. And you answer to the people of Guam. We don't answer to you. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. And that's why I'm sitting here as a voter to tell you to support these folks that are hardworking. I saw it during the pandemic. And you're right. And I'm tired of this labeling, political hire. 16 years of government rule under the Republican, they had a lot of political hires. Trust me, I was a political hire in that administration. And I'm a political hire now, but I don't like that term, if you're going to label that term. I'm an LTA, a limited term appointment. 1 year. The governor don't have to renew my appointment. And I'm okay with that. But let's not label people around here that they're political hires. Because I know people that had 7 pay raises, but yet the rest of the port didn't have a pay raise. So let's quit the bickering. You're all senators for the people of Guam. Let's quit this Republican versus Democrat. Let's quit pitting students against the Gov Guam workers. and let's find the money. 16 million is a drop in the bucket. If the governor can erase a $500,000 in deficit, I'm pretty sure she can maintain 16 million, because apparently under 16 years of Republican rule, that couldn't happen. So let's give this governor what she needs to do her job and quit micromanaging her and do your job in supporting what needs to be done. And with that, I challenge each of you guys to do that. And again, quit this Republican-Democrat thing. You're 15 senators working for the people of Guam. And with that, I conclude my testimony. Thank you very much. If you have any questions for me, my number is 482-7979. You can text me, message me, or call me. 482-7979. Thank you very much. I have to get back to work because, like I said, my leave is up, and my boss is right there.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. We'll now begin with Sandra Flores. And then after Sandra, it'll be Charlene, and then we just go down the line, okay? Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Chair San Agustin, and thank you for the distinguished body and the public and everyone witness here. I'm Sandra Flores, Director and representing Kaha, and I believe that I represent the operations and the employees of line agencies like ours here today. I also want to recognize that staff members of Kaha, 4 altogether, had taken their own time to be here since 9 a.m. It's almost 12. 2 are still here, thank you. I will be brief and I will be direct. I just want to say what I see. I see inflation. I see rising costs that affect my staff at Kaha, as I'm sure it affects all agencies. They're having to consider healthcare decisions, where they drive, how to celebrate family events. I see employees in and out of the government responding to inflation with pay raises. I also see an administration that I believe has shown responsible fiscal management, and I see that additional revenues to fund this increase have been identified. So quite simply, I see the need for this pay increase, and that now is the time for this pay increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Ms. Nicholas.
Greetings. Hafide Committee, esteemed senators of the 37th Guam Legislature and Committee on Rules. I am Charlene Nicholas. I am the Senior Citizens Administrator of the Division of Senior Citizens of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. I support passage of Bill 24-37, as the Competitive Wage Act has not been updated since its implementation in 2014. The updating of the general pay plan is necessary to have a more competitive compensation structure to enable recruitment and retention of the best candidates and employees. And this is in reference to the Department of Administration's Competitive Wage Act, General Pay Plan, and other related updates, memorandum dated January 30th, 2023. The GPP consists of all positions that are not included in the nurse pay plan, law enforcement officer, education pay plan, attorney pay plan, and executive pay plan within the government of Guam. This plan is the most comprehensive as it includes the widest varieties of positions in the government across the different industries and professions. This pay plan has a majority of the positions in the classified service and unclassified service. The GPP covers the largest number of positions, which means that it is also the pay plan that covers the most employees throughout the government of Guam. Again, I reference the Department of Administration's Competitive Wage Act update regarding general pay plan and other related updates, memorandum dated January 30th, 2023. The passage of Bill 24-37 will provide the Division of Senior Citizens staffing through full-time equivalents, FTEs, with updated compensation structure for the 11 filled positions who provide 10 home and community-based services for the elderly and their caregivers, information and referral access, protection and advocacy for the island's Manapkols through our adult protective services and their caregivers through the division's State Office on Aging. Further, the passage of this bill will provide the best candidates the opportunity to apply for 7 vacancies as pay compensation structure will increase. Currently, the FTEs represent approximately 61%. There's currently 11 staffed under the division. Our vacancies is approximately 39%, or 7. The combined staffing through the FTEs and vacancies, once all are onboarded, will provide the Division of Senior Citizens the staffing from 11 to 18 to increase promotion of aging in place programs and services to ensure our island's Manamco and their caregivers to live a life of dignity with choices while ensuring cultural values are safeguarded. Provided in the table below, which will be provided because I'm providing oral testimony at this time, is the breakdown of the Division of Senior Citizen staffing, broken down by FTEs and current vacancies. So at the top of that, we have the State Office on Aging right now. There are currently 3 FTEs to include one Senior Citizens Administrator, which is myself, a Senior Citizens Assistant Administrator, and 1 Administrative Assistant. There's 1 vacancy. Under the home and community-based programs, which I mentioned there are 10, right now we have 1 Program Coordinator 4 and 2 Program Coordinator 3s. We currently have vacancies of 3, which are in progress recruitments. For information on referral and assistance, right now all recruitment is in progress there for all 3 vacancies. And with this area, this is where we get the calls from the general public for access into aging services. Where can I go? Who can I turn to? So that whole area, we currently have 3 vacancies. Under protection and advocacy, this includes our Bureau of Adult Protective Services. We currently have 5 FTEs, so at least with this bureau, it's fully staffed. We have 1 social services supervisor 1 program coordinator 4, and 3 social worker 3s. Under administrative support, we have in progress recruitments for 2 staff vacancies. So total, again, FTEs right now is 11, and then 7 vacancies. In closing, passage of Bill 24-37 for employees classified under the General Pay Plan is necessary to have a more competitive compensation structure to enable recruitment and retention of the best candidates. For the Department of Public Health and Social Services, Division of Senior Citizens, this will enable retention of employees and opportunities for candidates via recruitment process to strengthen the division's workforce, to enhance delivery of programs and services for our island's Manamco and their caregivers. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Please just, everyone, please identify yourself, okay, before you start. Thank you.
Half a day and good afternoon. My name is Paul David Cabana, and I'm an agricultural management technician for the Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Development Services Division. I'm here today to provide my testimony as an employee for the Government of Guam and to address my agreement for the proposed 22% increase for Government of Guam employees. August 2015 was the beginning of my career for the Department of Agriculture. I started out with the Forestry and Soil Resources Division, taking a $2 pay decrease from the private sector. My service as an employee for agriculture granted me great chiefs and directors to serve under, always encouraging me to return to school for upward mobility and management opportunities. Since 2016, the desire to further my education was forever present, but with intense fieldwork and a single parent with 2 beautiful daughters, the opportunity to go back to school remained stagnant. My current division, ADS, opened a technician position in June of 2021 that I quickly capitalized on obtaining. Since the start of my time in service with ADS, February 2022, I've completed 3 courses at Guam Community College and I'm currently enrolled in a general education course this semester. I'm on my path to success, but I must be honest with you today, financially, this route and journey I'm on is a struggle. The proposed 22% increase could grant parents serving under the government scholastic opportunities for themselves and their children. The overall well-being for employees receiving the 22% increase would have a great and positive impact, breaking the monotony and stress for the paycheck-to-paycheck battle. In closing, I would like to state that at the Department of Agriculture, this 22% increase would be going to staff and personnel who are passion-driven. Day in and day out, I'm fortunate enough to work for an agency with people who love the environment and love nature. An agency who places great effort into educating the community through outreaches to promote subsistent practices from our natural resources. I ask you today as a Government of Guam employee, as a father, and as a student, please place no doubt or hesitation on this 22% increase. Si Dios masi.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
Buenos and half a day. My name is Diane Weiss. I'm the wildlife supervisor at the Department of Agriculture, Division of Aquatic and Wildlife. I'm a 25-year resident of Guam, and I've worked at the department, actually I think I'm here 26, I'm getting beyond the counting the years, put it that way. I've been at the government of Guam over 23 years. I raised my family here, and I just felt compelled to speak today. I'm not all that prepared. I don't have big notes, but I got my sticky notes. I agreed with the first gentleman, very passionate, but not with everything he said, but I do agree that the 15 senators that are put in place are to make decisions for the government as a whole, and you are the economic advisors and control of the purse strings. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I vote across the board, depending on how you people operate, and I hope that you consider yourself just, the important task you have, and I appreciate all your hard work. So I'm going to touch on two things, economics and my personal experience working at Gov Guam. I'm not an economist. I have taken economics. I am a natural resource. I have a master's in natural resource management, and I took economics as a base course. I was very interested in the gentleman's discussion earlier, and I think everyone's discussed economics, and that's really what you guys, in the end, have to look at. We have to be able to afford it. In my own house, I said, Republican, Democrat. I run my finances like a Republican, but I really have to lean towards, this is my own Canadian theory of politics in the States, but I have to lean towards the Democrats to give the kids treats, or in the public, it's to support public programs that benefit the community, that end up benefiting everybody. So I'm 100% federally funded in all my programs and all my staff. I do have some local funding with the admin and my leaders to deal with items that are not funded by our grantors. I do know from managing grants that the federal salaries and benefits, they match the local salary. So any federal grant or any person in the government that's covered by a federal grant, number one, they won't harm our personal government coffers because they come from off island, but they do benefit the community because those federal funds get spent in the community, and my salary, there's a indirect cost. So when federal funded positions get there's a certain percentage that's negotiated that actually goes into the government coffers. So there is a benefit to the federally funded, and I don't know how much of that got worked into the economics of how much it's going to cost. I wasn't able to follow whether it included all the federal funded or just the local funds. But there are some benefits that need to really be looked at to look at the true cost financially, and then the shadow pricing of the benefits to paying our people what they're worth. Senator Brown mentioned, can we afford this going forward? We don't want to lay anybody off. I get that, but I would rather be paid now for my work now, and if you have to lay me off later, I'd rather be paid fairly now than trying to skimp out over the years just because we don't know what's going to happen. I was happy to hear people talk about the 2014 hay study, because I was one of those ones that had a lot of experience and really didn't, I think my pay rate was like $200 for the year or something. Because I had so much experience, they didn't account for that. And anyways, so I'm glad I wasn't alone on that one. But the staff with less experience really benefited from that, which helped hire, and that helps with retention for the earlier staff. I also appreciate the costs mentioned about hiring staff, the wait time, and I think it's important that we keep our people working because we're experiencing a brain drain. Anytime I train someone, there's a lot of effort that goes into bringing people into the government, even before they reach my office, to bring them in and get them up to speed with everything within federal grants and our natural resources. That loss, whether that's a shadow price or whatever, you got to take that into consideration. The bottom line is, I'm having a hard time hiring people and retaining people, and we're not spending our federal dollars. We are giving back money, and we're not getting, most importantly, we're not getting the net benefits of the projects that my section does. And those benefits are for our native animals. I work with the cocoa bird, the sea hick, and we're trying to save these species that are important to Guam's culture and the preservation going forward in our forests, and something that I'm very passionate about. I'll keep this short. I worked as a dental hygienist when I first got on island, and I took a 50% pay raise to get a job at the government of Guam. And that's not relatable, that's more about me. I was making $26.50 an hour in 1998, and to take a Bio 2 position, I have a master's in natural resources, to take a Bio 2 position, I think my pay was 13 something. So I took a 50% raise because I have a passion for natural resources, and a pay cut. I thought he was cutting me off from talking. Bottom line is, I've spent the last 25 years devoting my life to Guam's natural resources, and without any real pay raises all along other than 2 promotions. And I'm actually at the limit of my promotions. And the reason I could afford to do that is because I was married to a Fed. Because I had 2 incomes in my family. My husband was a federal up in the USDA, so he was making a good wage. He's passed on now after 9 years this summer. And I tell you, it's not easy. My kids are now grown, but yet not independent. They're now in university. And I'm having a hard time now that there's no Social Security blanket to assist with that. I personally have looked at other jobs. I have a ton of experience after all these years on island, and I could take a $20,000 more a year job and not have to supervise, and I could be doing very similar things, just contracting out money to have projects done. But that's not where my heart is. My boss told me years ago, Tino Uggan, he said he stayed with the local government because that's where he really felt that he could do well for the resources. So it's up to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to decide whether we can afford it. I think with things moving forward, everything going up, if the money people tell you that it can be squeaked out, and as far as future projects that are already under federal, my federal funders will pay the back. Actually, I'm behind in my increments a couple of years, and they're understanding of these things, and our funders give us more money to cover that. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Off-a-day senators, my name's Robert Alexander. I also work at the Department of Agriculture. I started out as an E1 pay grade. With inflation, it was so rough, I could barely live. That is honest. I'm now at an H4, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I raise a family. I got a couple notes here. I think that this pay raise is very important because it's the government setting standards. Setting standards for middle-class workers, especially in the lower pay grades. I thought of the law of navigation, that anyone can steer a ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course, and that's important for us lower pay grades. And for families, that do not have food stamps or welfare. Okay, so I don't receive any assistance. That's also because I work another job, and my wife works, and she also works another job. This pay raise will assist individuals in the government with lower pay grades. This will allow us to afford better meals, to pay our rent. I'm not a homeowner. I do not have a mortgage, and it helps us take care of our families. I'd like you to think of the ramifications if there is no pay raise. A lot of people will leave. People are leaving. They've been leaving. I will leave if I have to. I'm willing to leave because I want to raise strong children. Like Ms. Vice said, DAR, the Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources, they're federally funded, and the government makes money off of that division. Inflation is just, it's really taken its toll. My entire pay goes all to bills. My government pay. My other pay, I'm able to just buy food, mostly. So, you know, the government workers, we're a resource for the people. According to Harbison, 1966, professor of labor, economics at Princeton University and Columbia University, the author of Human Resources and the Wealth of Nations, he said the progress of a nation depends first and foremost on the development of its people. Unless it develops or uplifts the spirit and human potentialities of its people, it cannot develop much else, materially, economically, politically, or culturally. The basic problem of most underdeveloped countries is not a poverty or scarcity of natural resources, but the underdevelopment of their human resources. It's their first task. Their first task must be to build up the human resources. This means giving us a pay raise. Okay. I believe Guam, we're at a worker age, and we're at an emerging age of wisdom right now. The rate of national economic progress depends heavily on the quality and quantity of available skilled manpower at all levels. Manpower is the intrinsic resource of development. It is the indispensable means of converting other resources to mankind's use and benefit. It takes skilled manpower to discover and exploit natural resources, mobilize capital, develop technology, and carry on trade. If a country is unable to develop its human resources, it would face the possibility of building nothing. So I ask that you build this up. That was from Jakabauskas and Baumel, 1967. Leadership is the lifting of a man's or woman's vision to a higher heights, the raising of a man's or woman's performance to a higher standard, the building of a man's or woman's personality beyond its normal limitations. That's by Peter F. Drucker. I'm asking you to please lift us up, because a lot of us need to be lifted up. We need a raise, especially people in certain situations. I know you guys were talking about the schools and the children earlier, that the schools need repair. We all understand that. But the kids are going to be in my situation too, you know. There's kids graduating from high school this year that are going to step into my shoes, all right? I don't know if you're able to empathize with that, but I am, and I know what kind of challenges they're going to face with low pay. Guam has an export. We have an export. Just like Micronesia, the rest of Micronesia. And people are our export. We're going to leave. Okay? Because we don't want to be a part of low pay, of living standards that are low. Just dreaming of things that we can afford, that we need. Just bring in some worker retention, you know. And yeah, that's about all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wampat?
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, distinguished senators and guests. Agustin Guåhan. I am the president of the Department of Chamorro Affairs, and I offer this testimony today in support of Bill 24-37. I think it's easy for us to focus on the total dollar amount associated with the pay plan, assuming that said money could be better utilized elsewhere or in other places. This type of logic is understandable when our government agencies and departments are underfunded and underperforming. It makes sense to ask how we can provide our workers with more resources and a better working environment so that we can increase the quality of service to our people. But it is illogical to assume that employee morale and performance are not directly affected by compensation. It is therefore logical to imply that there is also a correlation between the competitiveness of wages on Guam and the brain drain that we've been experiencing for the last 2 decades or more. There are currently more Chamorros living in the continental United States than there are in Guam. Many of them are talented and capable individuals who want to come home and contribute to our society, but simply cannot afford to live on Guam any longer. Our best and our brightest are taking jobs off-island, while we are investing heavily in off-island recruiting because the qualified individuals are valued more elsewhere. We simply have no choice but to become more competitive lest we get left behind. Our government has received a much-needed shot in the arm from federal relief funds, one of the few positive byproducts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Government operations nationwide are using these resources as a baseline of guaranteed infrastructure and resource support, which will give them the opportunity to start thinking about the future of their operations and employees. One of the negative and unforeseen outcomes of the pandemic assistance was the staggering departure of workers searching for better opportunities, many of whom refused to return to work, preferring to collect on pandemic relief from home, rather than working for a job where they were underpaid and underappreciated. As many have pointed out, these pay increases are not going to drastically increase the average line worker's biweekly paycheck, but the principle of the matter is clear. We either value our people or we don't. If we value them, then we must pay them what they're worth. The cost of living is steadily increasing, as are the value of services that we provide to our community. This pay plan is simply responding accordingly. Understandably, we are all concerned about whether we can sustain such growth and what the impact will be on our government and our people. All agency heads and directors should have already adjusted their respective budgets to ensure that we can afford these increases. The rising cost of living is not changing, nor is the cost of doing the work of the people. We are either going to accept that reality and proactively work to sustain that price tag, or we will experience a mass exodus of talent and ability, and it will be our people who pay the price. Change is not easy, and balancing a budget is painfully challenging. But the hardworking employees of Gov Guam meet each day's challenges with pride, integrity, and the determination to support their families. We all have expectations of our government, and our employees work hard every day to meet those expectations. Let's show them that we appreciate their commitment while also reminding them that the expectations of our people must be met. When our wages are competitive, there will always be qualified people to do the job. But when our wages are substandard, we will ultimately be stuck with the leftovers. Let us demand excellence, but let us also send a message to our community that we value excellence and that we are committed to rewarding excellence. Our people deserve nothing less. Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Wampat. Mr. Gamboa.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Roy Gamboa, Deputy Director of the Department of Agriculture. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Welvin for reading my speech. Very well said, sir. No, thank you. That was a great speech, and how do I go after that? Today's public hearing, I believe, is something that is very important to the people of Guam. And what I've learned in the last few years working for the government of Guam is that there are many similarities in my experiences in serving in the military. And we have a bunch of leaders, we have our followers, and in the situation with the military, there is always a future growth by being promoted and seeking upward mobility in that sense. Not uncommon with the government of Guam. However, because of limited pay raises and all that stuff, right, we're looking at employees staying in a Tech 1 or Tech 2 position for 20 plus years, not seeing any increments coming their way. If not now, then when? It was never the right time 20 years ago. It wasn't the right time 10 years ago. And we're going to continue to kick this bill down the road. What I'm asking for you today is to take into consideration, and well, I would be remiss if I didn't extend my appreciation to the staff that has actually showed up here from the Department of Agriculture. It is very disheartening to hear that a family has to work, a man has to work 2 jobs, his wife also has to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I couldn't agree with you more, Robbie. The easy answer is to get on a plane and relocate. Companies like United, and this was said before, have come out here recruiting our talent, recruiting our people. Just down the street, the U.S. military is there every single day. Guam retains the highest rate of enlistment. I wonder why. When a high school graduate looks at his diploma and asks himself, what am I going to do with this diploma? Gov Guam doesn't seem to be at the top of his criteria, at the top of his choices. So it puts them in a very tough spot when an individual who is turning 18 looks at Government of Guam jobs and says, well, here is a recruiter offering me $25,000 or $50,000 to go serve my country, and many of my brothers and sisters have raised their right hand and left our island. We talk about brain drain. We've seen it. Our agency has gone, in the last 20 years, from an agency of 180 employees down to 80 employees, still continuing to carry out the torch. And one thing that has come into my mind in the last 4 weeks that I've been working at the agency, roughly 4 or 5 weeks, is as a Department of Agriculture, I see it every day as we drive by, agricultural lands being converted into R1 or M1 properties. This board, although being at a different subject, needs to take a look at exactly how much agricultural land we have left, or else this agency no longer exists. Now, speaking about hard decisions and what we've got to do, what you have to do as a board, an elected board of 15 individuals, first and foremost, this is a public hearing, so I hope you're hearing everything that is being said. In the last hour, I've seen many eyeballs looking down at cell phones or reading something else that is probably attracting your attention elsewhere. But I think what is very poignant here is listening to the employees of the government of Guam, not just the leaders. And again, this is coming from the people that are directly going to be affected by these pay raises. Listen to their stories, because these are your sons or your daughters, your brothers, your sisters, your nephews that are struggling day to day. Take a look at the cost-benefit analysis of 22% and ask yourselves quite simply, if we do not move forward with this 22% increase, how are we as a government to recruit? How are we going to retain? In the next few years, we're going to be losing a huge chunk of individuals that are going to be retiring. What plans do we have then? What do we do to retain the knowledge of these individuals? How do we replace 25, 30, 35 years of knowledge and institutional knowledge that's going to be walking out the door? 22% is just a small drop in the bucket. We can sit here and scrutinize all day long the pennies and the dollars and the cents. We can take a look at all the different projections, but when it comes down to it, it becomes a human factor. That is the single denominator in this whole thing. It is taking a look and listening to the stories like Robbie here and the rest of my staff saying, look, I just want to make ends meet. I just want to get by. I entered the government of Guam to become a millionaire. Said no one ever. Most families and everybody that come in and serve our island by taking government of jobs serve because they want to give back to the people. They want to provide to the brother and their sister, to their left and to their right. So not only is this a great idea, what's been proposed, it is the only thing to do for our people. 3 months ago, you were put in your seats. Some of you have been here before, some of you are new. This may be one bill that can define the future of our island. And I'm speaking not on your behalf, but I'm speaking on the people, for the people, by saying 22% is just a drop in the bucket. And we've got to take a look government-wide where else we can improve the way of life, the quality of life. Because the easy answer is to just pack up and leave. 500 potential people with United, who's next? Who is the next large corporation that is going to come out here to recruit our most precious resource, which is our people? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.
Thank you, Roy. Ms. Munia.
Hafa Senators, thank you very much to the Committee on Rules for convening today for this public hearing. Work to manage Guam's natural resources is often not typical everyday work. Much of it is highly specialized, which also requires unique studies or skill sets. It definitely requires a unique mindset. In the past year, our agency, your Department of Agriculture, mandated to protect your jungles, your oceans, your fishery, your coral reefs, your farms, your rare and endangered birds, skinks, and insects. This agency, your agency, has been unable to recruit and fill vital positions such as Forester 1, Forester 2, biologists, fisheries and wildlife technicians, and commodity inspectors. We have continuing announcements for various positions running for more than a year sometimes. When we finally did receive a certified biologist list to fill 3 positions, 4 of the 6 applicants declined to interview because they had already accepted higher paying jobs elsewhere. In addition to this difficulty in recruitment, our ability to retain staff is weakened by the fact that they know full well the feds are recruiting and paying more. Our ability to keep them centers on loyalty to the island, but loyalty does not pay the rent or mortgage, nor does it fill your gas tank. We half-heartedly try to appeal to their sense of guilt on going federal, on leaving the good work of our agency, but that is only compounded by our own guilt at recognizing that we will not stand in anyone's way of securing a better living for themselves and their families. This agency has lost 8 members of our team to higher paying jobs. We have had the difficulty filling forester, biologist, commodity inspector, and technician positions, and we simply cannot compete. Employees want to stay. They want to continue the work that gives them the honor of protecting our island's natural resources, but staying no longer seems like an option when it comes to the sacrifice of one's family's stability and financial security. Our Department of Agriculture, GovGuam employees do this work because they believe in public service. They believe in protecting Guam's natural resources. I have no problem sitting here before you advocating for our hardworking employees. Most of our team members willingly, unflinchingly go above and beyond what is asked of them on the day-to-day just to get the job done and provide that service to the public. Additionally, we have increased federal funding for multiple programs and projects, but we still can't recruit the people to do the work. This pay equalization is much needed and long overdue as an adjustment in salaries. It is still not parity with pay across the nation or federal pay, but it helps the government be a little closer to competitive and takes tremendous strides towards keeping our local families working to protect our local resources.
Please support your public servants and vote in favor of Bill 24-37. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Half a day, Chairman San Agustin and members of the Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations. My name is Leilani Navarro. I work as an Environmental Public Health Officer Supervisor with the Division of Environmental Health, or DEH, of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. And I am here today in my personal capacity to present my testimony on Bill 24-37, an act to appropriate $16 million to the Department of Administration for implementation of the Adjusted General Pay Plan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. When I started working for DEH about 8 years ago as an Environmental Public Health Officer, or EPHO, which is one of the many positions under the General Pay Plan, I was excited and determined to make a difference in the health and welfare of the public. EPHOs are known for conducting sanitation inspections of the island's health regulated establishments, such as food facilities, institutional facilities, public pools, laundry and dry cleaners, cosmetic establishments, tattoo shops, and massage establishments, so that these facilities do not make the customers sick or get them injured. But our work is more than that. EPHOs manage or assist in managing multiple environmental health programs, including Consumer Commodities Program, Controlled Substances Program, Plans and Specifications Program, the Mosquito Surveillance and Control Program, and the Radiological Health Program. We also prepare draft regulations, respond to outbreaks, provide food safety training, and issue health certificates and sanitary permits. Working in DEH as an EPHO often means working more than the standard 40-hour week. It is often very stressful with deadlines and never-ending assignments, which require us to work on evenings and weekends. And because EPHOs are exempt employees, we do not qualify for overtime pay. Through the years, I have seen many employees leave DEH. In fact, just within the last 4 years, DEH had lost 8 EPHOs to resignations and transfers, and this is significant considering that the average number of employees in DEH is only about 20 in the past decade. Based on discussions I've had with my former colleagues, EPHOs are paid significantly less than other employees on island for similar work and qualifications, especially federally employed civilians. The average annual salary of EPHOs in DEH is about $50,352, compared to the average national salary for the same occupation, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is $76,530 as of May 2021. Thus, working as an EPHO in DEH is 34% below the national average. Providing funding for the Adjusted General Pay Plan as proposed in Bill 24-37 will bring the EPHO salary closer to the national average. DEH staff have shown steadfast commitment to serving our people and have risked their health and safety working on the front lines of the dengue outbreak and the COVID pandemic. But we have not received a pay raise in the last 8 years. I strongly believe that the employees are our government's greatest asset, and we deserve fair compensation in order to keep up with the rising cost of living. This will enable us to not only take better care of our families' needs, but will inspire us to continue delivering high-quality service to the public that we serve. Providing an updated pay plan as proposed in Bill 24-37 will assist in the recruitment and retention of the best possible workforce that will provide the best quality of service to the people. Thus, I am in support of this bill, which will provide a fair wage for general workers like me and many others in the government. Allowing this bill to pass will not only attract the best candidates for the job, but will also help in the retention of valuable, skilled employees. Thank you again for allowing me to present my testimony on Bill 24-37.
Thank you. Ma'am?
I first wanted to say thank you very much for the inspiring and persuasive testimony that was submitted by Mr. Alexander. I believe that he represents the bulk and girth of not just the voting constituents on Guam, but also the bigger part of Government of Guam, where they're out there in the trenches every day. So I very much thank you for that, sir. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Tammy Amwan. I am a program coordinator at Hagåtña Restoration and Redevelopment Authority, and I came before this body almost 10 years ago to provide testimony in support of the CWA of 2014 when then Senator B.J. Cruz was attempting to roll back that increase. I am here again to provide my support, this time for the governor's proposed 22% raise increase, which I believe is a necessary tool to pull Guam out of its dire socioeconomic circumstance with rising costs, homelessness, and the increase in violent crimes and drug abuse. Many of you are college graduates or business people that have a background or at least knowledge on how economies work. If I did the math correctly, the value of my home in Baza Gardens, which I believe the construct of those homes were like in 1975, more than doubled since 2014 when we first purchased our home. At my current pay rate, I don't know if I'd be able to afford the same house today at a market value of over $300,000. As a voting constituent and a longtime resident of Guam, I have seen the drastic and desperate changes to our island. I have witnessed and experienced family and friends leaving island en masse and anticipate several more to leave before the end of the year for better opportunities elsewhere. What we're searching for is parity, pay that makes sense in comparison to the cost of living. It is not contingent upon classified Government of Guam employees to make the laws that can turn this island's economy around. That's your job. So I sit before you today to ask you what mechanisms or cost-saving measures have you proposed to increase or sustain revenues for our island home and keep its dedicated workforce here? A while ago, a senator proposed a slaughterhouse, which, by the way, he's not of local descent, that may have been Guam's way to not just provide food for our people here, but possibly all throughout this region as a more inexpensive way to feed ourselves and our children and also bring in much needed revenues. What happened to that idea? Why not get ahead of the financial issues instead and develop innovative, sustainable strategies so our people don't have to leave? My younger sister and her family tried to make Guam their home for almost 10 years. Even she had to finally give in to better pay when she was hired by United Airlines recently. She and her family will be relocating stateside before the end of this coming April. And I'll repeat something similar to you now that I said to the legislative body all those years ago. You can continue to deny hardworking employees the parity of pay against the cost of living, but there will come a day when even the most invested workers raising their families here will entertain leaving Guam for more affordable opportunities. If you want an invested workforce, you must invest in them. Thank you.
Thank you. Art, Director?
Good afternoon, Senator and Chairperson Agustin, Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations, and members of the committee and members of the 37th Guam Legislature. As the Director of Public Health and Social Services, I too support the passage of Bill 24-37. The Governor's support of the General Pay Plan increase comes at an opportune time for Guam's government workforce. Although unemployment rates may remain historically low, workforce participation is virtually stagnant, and more employees are voluntarily leaving government for seemingly greener pastures. With a stronger economy on the rise, job creation is expanding and intensifying the competition for workers. Workforce studies project by 2023, 35% of employees may leave their jobs to work somewhere else for better opportunities. We are seeing this impact already with a vast number of unfilled government-wide vacancies and a shrinking talent pool. COVID-19 has added to the workforce strain, limiting employee supply, increasing the demand for workers, and creating an employee-in-control market. The new normal of remote work has offered a wider range of employment for individuals seeking a more flexible and balanced lifestyle. Today's workforce choices increase the stake for employers and highlights the need for effective talent retention and incentive strategies. Many of us unknowingly rely heavily on government programs and workers with large expectations that most often exceeds our suggested compensation. The Governor of Guam has historically been conservative with pay plans, which makes our compensation less than competitive. The update of the Competitive Wage Act could not have come at a better time, and we are truly grateful. We anticipate this increase will attract interest to the government workforce and build a stronger government of Guam. The pay increase is an investment in our future and is affirmation of our value of the employees who support, provide, and assist our community to be well. The services provided from DPHS is varied and many. While I can write an exhaustive list of services provided by DPHSS, what is critical is not the quantity of services DPHSS provides, but of significance and importance is the work well-deserving employees of this department perform daily to assist the people of Guam in achieving and maintaining their highest levels of independence and self-sufficiency in health and social welfare. The new GPP will improve DPHSS and other agencies' ability to recruit and boost the morale of our existing employees, resulting in increased retention. It is known that job satisfaction and a sense of purpose are crucial for employee productivity, and getting paid right is equally important. The increase in pay will also build upon the loyalty to be employed by DPHSS, resulting in better work product and a positive work environment, leading to a higher demand to work for DPHSS and ultimately serving the people of Guam. The new GPP will allow for the Governor of Guam, DPHSS, to be competitive in its compensation, attracting a new pool of local applicants who were now planning to remain on island after graduating. The new GPP may also attract a stateside pool of highly qualified and competent applicants, bringing DPHSS experience from various fields of study. From an economic perspective, the current GPP has not kept up with the increase in the cost of living. The new GPP would provide better financial security for approximately 433, or 85% DPHSS employees under the General Pay Plan, who would be better able to afford their daily needs without having to look for a second or part-time job for supplemental income. The new GPP will allow for more spending into the local economy, resulting in increased revenues for the government while also building the island's economy. Governor Guam employees on the GPP deserve this long overdue pay increase. It is without question DPHS employees have shown their steadfast commitment to serving our people and have risked their health and safety working on the front lines of the dengue outbreak and COVID-19 pandemic, but have not received a pay adjustments since 2014, 9 years ago. Our employees are our government's greatest asset and deserve a pay raise. If not this April, then when will it be the right time to give this well-deserved compensation? As years pass, the cost of implementing any pay adjustment will only increase the cost of implementing the new pay plan. Let us move forward with the implementation of the new GPP and not delay this any further. Respectfully, Director San Agustin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Senator Tideway, do you have any questions for the panel? 2 questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really have no questions, just a comment that, we are hearing everyone's concerns, and we do understand the issues. We have family members in the same predicament as most of you who are sitting here testifying today on your circumstances, and some of them have already left. The point is that what we're trying to do is be able to sustain this, to provide a raise that well-deserved, well-needed, but to sustain it is important. This is the first time I've ever heard someone who came before us saying they're willing to, get paid what they're due now today and lose their job later. I just can't see that or wanting that to happen. The whole purpose of giving you a raise is to help with your cost of living, to provide a good, safe family home atmosphere for your family. And it's just, we want to make sure that there's money there. We're not going to provide any false hope for anyone. We saw that in 2014 on the pay raises. Many of those were very disappointed that they did not get what they deserved. It was those who just came in, but people who've been in the agency for 10 years or more, they were stuck with minimal, $10 more on their paycheck. So if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And we are paying attention. Roy, you mentioned, we're looking down here because we're reading other people coming in who are not able to be here, that they couldn't get off work and be here to testify. So they're sending us comments in, and I just received one that opposed the bill. So we are listening. There's no doubt about it. And we have to make any decision that comes from our table, our side, to look at all angles of this. So we are definitely going to do our job. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank everyone in the room again, and particularly folks who have come forward to speak to us. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. Mr. Alexander, your testimony was powerful. You testified to us that your family, currently you have 4 jobs to support one family. Is that correct, sir?
My 2 oldest sons also work. So total of us in my family unit, there's 6 jobs.
6 jobs to support one family. That your sacrifice, your family's sacrifice, is not lost on anyone. I know from personal experience that what you are doing now takes courage. You're a courageous man. I congratulate you. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you. You told us to have respect for labor and to lift you up, and I think I wrote those down correctly. Respect labor, and let's lift you all up. We all want to. Everybody does. I promise you that. If we could give you if we can give you the 22%, we can do it, and we can do it responsibly. We will, sir. But one of the things that we will not do is lie to you. We're not going to lie to you and say, yeah, we're going to give you the 22%, knowing very well that we can't afford it, just to take it back from you later. We're not going to do that. We have way more respect for you, sir, than we would to just lie to you, just to get a vote or whatever. I hope we can do this for you. I hope we can do it for all of Gov Guam. I'm still not decided. As I said earlier, I'm still not decided on which way to go with this, because as much as I want Gov Guam to get that raise, 22%, I agree it's deserved. I have another responsibility to other taxpayers on Guam to protect the public purse, and you understand that, of course. I guess this is not really a question, but just a comment like the previous senator. Congratulations to you. We're not going to lie to you. If it can be done, and it can be done in a fiscally responsible way, I will support it. But I will not, well, I won't lie to you, and I'm not going to loot some other taxpayer's wallet just so I look good for the day. Sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Chris Reynes, please.
Mr. Chairman, and yes, we are listening. We're listening to all the voices, because that's what we have to do. We have a duty and responsibility to every single citizen on this island. And I agree with a lot of the stuff that's been put forward during this entire hearing. I think Senator Fisher just put it absolutely right. We're not going to lie to you. And that's why we're going to do this through the budget process. Because every single one of you sitting at this table and everybody who's went before us all have competing interests. You all have agencies to run as well. And you all need resources. And with that, I would direct my attention to Mr. San Agustin. Recently, there was an a story in the press that you are currently $1.2 million shortfall in your budget to cover social worker pay, I guess incentive pay that was put forward to show that we do react to those issues in terms of where there's perennial shortfalls and the like. And so you would appreciate the fact that we do this in the budget process as a supplemental appropriation, because it looks like you need $1.2 million. Can you discuss that with us? Yes, I address that question to you.
To Senator Dueñas, I believe this is hopefully we're talking about the same article in which there was a conversation that we presented a shortfall in the recruiting of social workers and staff, and that was, I think, about a little over $1 million. But I do want to share with the senators this afternoon that our fiscal team has gone through our numbers and we're able to accommodate that request. So we're no longer short. We're also able to pay our overtime. We will also now be able to have Guma San Jose, LE 1 and 2 be fully funded for the rest of fiscal year 2023. So our fiscal team went in and really looked at all the numbers, our spending habits, our spending projections, and they came out with funding within the department to fund these efforts and these obligations.
Well, I wish you would have done a press release on that, because I'm sure many people...
Well, we actually didn't send the press release.
They'll be covered probably by the media now.
Sorry, Senator. That wasn't a press release. That was an article in which the speaker said that she had provided over $900,000 for the recruitment, and in our presentation, we were saying we're short over $1 million. And so that staffing pattern will be coming forth to the speaker, and then the information that we are able to cover that at this time.
Yeah, I think the public sometimes are, as you know very well, get concerned when they see that kind of a headline. I was saying that it might have been nice to do a press release saying we are no longer short. And we
we'll definitely take that into consideration. I don't think it's too late.
It'll probably be covered by the media today,
okay.
Given the fact that you made that wonderful announcement. Yeah. So in the balance of that, I'll save my questions for Mr. Byrne when he comes back up so that we can talk about this in a budgetary discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Dueñas. Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the panel for your testimonies this morning and the previous panel as well. You know, the unfortunate thing with pay raises is that it should be starting from the bottom up. It should be starting from the bottom up instead of top to bottom. And you're right. Our job here is we are the purse strings of the government of Guam, and it's our job to definitely make sure that. Again, we ask all the questions and look at all the financials and make sure that it's sustainable and affordable. And unfortunately, we're at this situation where, again, as testimonies that folks that haven't had raises in years, maybe even decades, are here today, and they should be the first ones to actually be acknowledged in regards to pay and sustaining those employees, because they're the ones that stay on even after the higher paid employees leave in every 2, 4, or even 8 years. But again, thank you for your testimony this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lujan. Senator Brown, do you have any questions or 2 questions or comments?
Gosh, I have a lot of questions as I listen to all this, Mr. Chair, because we are listening. I mean, you know, we're also looking at data that we don't have formally in front of us with regards to ARP fundings and other expenditures in government. And I've run several key agencies in this government with hundreds of employees. And I've been able to address their pay compensation. Some may argue, oh, because you were an autonomous agency in one and line agency in the other. But I've also been able to address critical positions and how to even create critical positions that didn't exist. The creation of territorial hydrogeologists at Guam EPA was done during our tenure at EPA. So maybe, Art, I guess you're at a disadvantage because you're, aside from maybe Chelsea there at Department of Agriculture, but have we stopped giving increments in the government?
I know the increments have continued, ma'am. I think
okay, so we do give increments on performance. So the idea that salaries are sustained and that as you become a senior employee, because over time that multiplies, whatever your percentage is, 3%, 4%, You know, I don't want to give the impression that because I've been in the government for so many years, my salary is what it was when I first started, you know, right out of graduate school. Is that the case also, Department of Agriculture? Are you giving increments to your employees? So more senior employees continue to receive increments that are multiplied. And then if you have a critical position that you're unable to fill, what action have you taken with Department of Administration to address the job description or address the pay scale? You are able to do that during a term without these type of massive, whether we're going to give pay increases or not, to address critical positions that are needed in your department. So have you taken steps to do that?
Actually, Senator, I just want to make a real quick comment. The pay increments are for all staff, not just senior staff. It's for all
No, I
staff.
understand that, but I'm also pointing out, you know, because
In
again,
terms of-
keep in mind, I mean, I appreciate directors coming before us now to say, oh, we want to support our employees, as all directors should.
Yes. We have,
But also at the beginning of this administration, one of the first things that happened is directors were given pay increases before they even started working. It's nice to catch up. But I'm also pointing out that as that goes on, I mean, the impression that all pay has been stagnated for 9, 10, 15 years, whatever the case may be, is not factual. And that system was set up to give an incentive to employees in their performance. The more if you have better performance, you get the percentage to recognize that.
So with regards, Senator, to your question with regards to what we've done, we've actually taken the announcements and worked with our network to put those announcements out. We've also worked with the Department of Administration and created new positions for the Division of Children's Wellness. We also now funded a federal program administrator, which we've not had. That position just started in 2021, and we're just a little over a year of its anniversary. So we're looking internally in terms of what we can do.
And do you do above step? I mean, if we can do
Yes.
it for PIO, which
Yes,
to me, I'm sorry, I've never had a PIO.
Yes, we have also done
You
some
know, I
above
mean, there are
step.
other critical positions of the government we could argue that could be above step hiring. I mean, do you address that?
Yes.
Again, I just want to clarify because the impression, you know, at least I'm hearing on my end, and if I didn't experience in Gov Guam in my 30 plus years either, then I would assume that there's no ability to address these critical positions, or that the impression that income is totally stagnated, or the ability to apply or advance in one's career. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't start out with a silver spoon in my mouth. I started out at a salary, which one can argue, oh, you know, I couldn't have paid a mortgage with it and a car payment. I mean, thank goodness parents were generous at the time, because many of us didn't start out. I mean, that was our incentive to continue to work hard and move up and look at other career advancement. I understand families may want. This has never been an option for me. I've always chosen Guam at a sacrifice, whatever you want to call it, because it's home. That's why I stay. I think many people stay because it's home, and I understand others may leave because that's what works for them. But I just want to clarify, Mr. Chair, because if I'm going to listen to all the testimony, and I would get a general impression that there has been no opportunity, there's been no, because I know we're at the other end of budgets that we're continuously having every year to increase the appropriations. Just if we did nothing else other than pay salaries, that's guaranteed that in the same amount of personnel to the taxpayers of Guam, that rate increases every single year, even if we did nothing else within that agency. So I just think it's important to clarify, and as mentioned by my other colleagues, the idea that we're being insensitive or we're not listening or we're not aware and we're not conscious, I mean, there will be no pay raise on this side of the aisle, at least not while I'm here. I've never voted for one for the legislature. So we're not sitting here benefiting off the table. But we also have to take into consideration, I agree with Senator Tom Fisher, I don't want to lie either. There are others that are not here that will vote for this because it'll get them by to the next step, and maybe they don't care what happens after because maybe some other person, some other poor soul will be here to have to clean it up or have to do the cuts. And I've had to be here during the years when we've had to cut. And we've had to reduce work weeks. And for you, and I know you, Diane, I've known you for many years. I've had the opportunity to work side by side with you, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And heck, maybe the next priority is addressing how do we support our natural resources so we continue to get skilled, experienced people to take care of what is so valuable and important to us. But I don't want to see you end your career without retiring because we can't pay your salary or we can't support you in that. I mean, yes, I recognize you have federal funding, but for those that don't. You know, I don't want them to be left in the cold either. I mean, that's why we have to make the tough decisions, and they're not easy and they're not always popular. So I just, you know, I recognize that. We're here because we are listening to you. And our chairman here, who we sit through many budgets, we're pretty much the same audience. They're colleagues you never see here stay for hours on end, and we probably won't have lunch because we have 2 o'clock hearing. And I'm not saying, oh, woe is me, feel bad for us, because we stepped up to the plate to run and to make these sacrifices. But please recognize we hear what you're saying, but I just want to make sure that we have a clear picture, and everyone, including our public, that has to pay for this. You know, the federal government, that's wonderful, they have the money, but when they don't, and when they furlough their employees, or when Congress doesn't pass their budget and they're left suspended for months on end, it ain't perfect there either where they're sent home and not compensated. It's not a perfect world there either. I think we need to well, but they're left where they can't come in for a period of time because there's no authorization for them to work. You know, they have to wait, right, during those times. So anyway, Mr. Chair, I appreciate it. I know it's been a long day, and I appreciate the input. And I just think we have to take in the bigger picture, because that's the reality we're faced with when we make decisions. Thank you, and thank you to all of you for staying as long as you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Blas, do you have your 2 questions, or you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I'm going to go along, and I share the same sentiment as the previous colleague, Senator Brown. Guys, we understand this. We understand the need, and for pay raises when we can. But one of the things that I heard today, and I need to express this, and I heard from not just the government employees, and I thank you, sir, for your testimony. Melvin, I also want to thank you. I mean, that's probably one of the most sensible testimonies that we heard. However, one of the things that I've heard here is the same thing. We're talking about a pay raise. In one of the breaks, I was outside with an employee of the government of Guam, okay, who still was waiting for his meritorious bonus that he was promised in 2014, but hadn't gotten any yet. And we hear today about employees who want morale. Guys, we can't legislate morale from the legislature. That comes from the leaders, okay, who should be able to step up to the plate and say, I want to be able to provide pay raises. I want to be able to provide incentives to our people. But that hasn't happened. It happens conveniently when this government has been flush with cash because of a pandemic and other reasons. Because it never happened before. And it's kind of, for me, if I was sitting as a government employee and asking for 20% pay, we have to plead here. Directors and deputy directors, they didn't have to plead, they just got it. What if I told you there were some agencies that exist within the government of Guam that have unclassified employees that are sitting there, that was created, okay, with some flush in cash that the agency has gotten for average salaries of about $54,000 a year. That could have gone to be addressing a lot of the concerns of the employees. And we're going to sit here today and listen to this? Thank you, sir, for bringing it up. And here's another thing, because like as Senator Fisher has stated, we've not only got to worry about the purse strings of the government, but we also have to manage the cash that is created, that is brought in by the business community, by the private sector. It's the private sector, it's the businesses that run companies that pay the taxes to pay for government services. Because government doesn't make money, it spends it. So along those lines, and I hate to put you all in a position, but for those in the panel, I'm assuming all of you worked throughout the pandemic? You did? Can you see the raise of hands on the number of people who didn't get a paycheck during the pandemic? Thank you. Thank you. Like Senator Guåhan said, the low-hanging, okay, the ones in the bottom. Sir.
I started at the department during the pandemic.
During the pandemic?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, thank you, yeah. Sir, same thing with you?
I was with the division, Forestry and Soil Resources Division, so I was patrolling the island looking for wildland fires, but we never got an adjusted pay under forestry.
But did you get a paycheck?
I got a paycheck, yes,
Yeah,
sir, but
okay.
in terms of the adjustment pay and everything else, we just got
Okay.
straight time.
We have
and
people in businesses that not only did not receive a paycheck during the pandemic, but lost their jobs during the pandemic. Okay? That's the other thing that we need to be able to take care of. Okay? So when we try to balance this, we've got to look at the needs of the community as a whole. I hope you can understand that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Kenneth, do you have anything you want to say to the panel?
I just want to thank the panel for all of your testimony, and thank you for your hard work. At the end of the day, your services to the people of Guam is mostly unappreciated at the most part, right? We are always getting called out, but just like Einstein, there were so many problems he solved correctly, but the one problem is what we always call out. So I just want to thank you guys again for all your hard work. We're going to do our best to implement this plan. And we encourage you guys to stay on island, work with us as long as you can, but we don't blame you for, going on to greener pastures. It's just like us. We ourselves, right? Once there's an opportunity to go to an administration, we'll take the pay raise. We'll abandon ship. And the same thing is for people relocating to military matters, federal jobs, right? Condolences to your family and yourself, ma'am. It's no-brainer. It's really, our people need this, and it's been too long, and if not now, when, right? We cannot keep pushing it down and kicking it down and thinking that there's something's gonna change. Because frankly, I honestly considered relocating prior to running for office. But I did take the challenge on myself that if I relocated, what difference would the next generation face? Because it's insanity if you think people are gonna stay and work for $8.25, $9.25, and pay for gas that's $5. You think about it, it's your time. So, I stress that I've worked three jobs at one time of my life. I grew up in a tin roof house. I know the hardships a lot of our people face. I've had payless paydays, even though I'm very young. I didn't go to UOG or higher education because we couldn't afford it. But especially these private companies, a lot of them are always going to be for profit. They're going to minimize their blow to their profit margin. I don't care what they think about me because they didn't lay my campaign out for me. I don't report to any of those big buku buck groups out there that get tax credit incentives or what do you want to call it? Can we get a holiday or something? These things happen for a reason, and it's not just because we cannot afford it today. We try to find the balance with all our policies. Just because we use big words doesn't mean it makes a difference. It's still the same effect. We give a tax credit, it cuts off the general fund. So I want to make sure that the general fund takes care of our working class people, because we want to go out there on our campaign trail and say we want to take care of the working class. We want to make sure that we have lights to turn on at home. But hell, today, people don't even want to turn on the lights at home because we can't even afford it. So, I just want to say for the record that we got to do better. We cannot think that people are going to stay on this island for pennies or wait until the next election, right before election, right? We're going to drum up the beat and let's start pay raise, pay raise, pay raise. Money, 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 right? Seriously. Public health, you are not only the essential people in our government. We understand that. Teachers, my mother is a teacher. My dad was a lineman. When shit hits the fan, we all come together as a people, collaboratively. Now that we're past the pandemic, no one's essential. No? Tasongin at paredzo. So that's all I want to say, is a lot of our generation are going to relocate, and that's the reality. The census isn't lying. It's a federal rubric. The reason why it's created is to show the economic impacts. So yeah, I'm a freshman senator, and people are going to say that I maybe don't know the most, right? Well, some people have been in this chair for longer than me, and we're still facing the same challenges. Hafamon. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless. Keep up the good work. Biba Gov Guam.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, wait,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
if I may, and please recognize and tell the freshman senator that language is like that is not permissible.
Understood.
Thank you.
I did whisper to him as he was on it. But I'm the last to speak, and then we have one more panel. It's only of two. Let me just express that, number one, Bill 24-37. If we want to talk about 2014, I was employed at Revenue and Tax in 2014. I don't know who else was employed as a worker. Somebody mentioned about merit. I still haven't got my merit bonus. Not an issue. We put in the budget, pay your obligations. Catch up, fix it. We're talking about the pay raise, so be it. It's overdue. We'll figure it out. Bottom line is we don't point fingers at we need it somewhere else while the same people are the same people we're going to need to keep employed. Thank you, Mr. Alex, for your speech, and Ms. Alma. I really appreciate it. I'm on, right? Tammy? Yeah, thank you. But with that, there's no other questions. Thank you for being here. Now we'll bring the last two individuals before, it's the 1:20, and we got another hearing at 2. And the last two would be Mr. Carlos Pangilinan and Lola Leon Guerrero. And we'll make this one hopefully quick, right, Carlos? Lola, come on up. You two just try to sit in the middle so we can. There's only the two of you. Are you ready, Carlos and Lola? We'll begin with Lola. All right, Lola, if you can go ahead and start.
Hafaday Honorable Senators of the 37th Guam Legislature. My name is Lola Leon Guerrero, the Director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. I submit this oral testimony in support of Bill 24-37, an act to appropriate $16 million to the Department of Administration for the implementation and adjustment of the General Pay Plan. Unlike most other department heads, I'm humbled to say that I come from the classified service. I actually retired from the Bureau of Statistics and Plans in, I think, March or February of last year. I dedicated my entire 31 years to government service to the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, starting as a Planner 1 and rising to the ranks of classified service and ultimately retiring as the Chief Planner. I can honestly say that I personally know and have seen all the hard work, dedication, and commitment of the classified workers throughout the government, and especially within the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. Within the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, there are 24 classified employees comprising of 14 locally funded and 10 federally funded classified positions. In addition to the $1.3 million in general fund appropriation allocated to the Bureau, to fund our locally funded programs and staff, the hardworking staff have also been successful in securing 40 current and active federal grant programs that is bringing in an additional $31 million in federal grants to benefit the territory of Guam. From funding to support our law enforcement agencies to the Burn JAG local law enforcement grant, from programs to strengthen and manage our coral reefs and coasts, this is through the Coral Reef Cooperative Agreement, as well as the Department of Interior Coral Reef Initiative Grant and the Coastal Zone Management Grant Program. We've also, during the emergency in response to coronavirus, we've actually put in an application to the U.S. Department of Justice, and Guam was actually awarded $2.something million. And these fundings that we used, we were able to get 4 ambulances for the Guam Fire Department. I believe we got 4 patrol cars for the Guam Police Department. And we've actually provided a lot of sanitation supplies and equipment for the law enforcement entities. So it is because of the hard work and dedication of the classified employees within the Bureau of Statistics and Plans that millions of additional federal dollars are appropriate to the government of Guam for the aforementioned purposes. There is a significant disparity in the pay of classified workers throughout the government of Guam, to include classified employees within my department. Day in and day out, our classified employees communicate with their counterparts from both local, autonomous agencies and federal government agencies. And although we do the same type of work and perform the same function of these employees, the pay of planners at autonomous agencies and the federal government is significantly higher. For instance, the pay for planners within the autonomous agencies are 30% higher than that of the line agency. In addition, the pay of federal counterparts, which comprises of GS positions, are even greater, sometimes exceeding a difference of 40% or more. In the past few years, I have seen a few staff resign to take higher paying positions within the federal government or to relocate off-island for higher paying jobs. I have staff at the Bureau who have served over 30 years of public service, and I want to retain them at the Bureau versus having them retire or separate from the government service to seek employment in the private sector, whose wages are, in some cases, competitive and attractive. Furthermore, I have staff who have close to 7 to 10 years of public service at the Bureau. We have senior staffs that have provided the training and mentorship to these staffs to ensure the goals and objectives of the Bureau are met and mandates are achieved. I do not want to lose these staff to the federal government or the autonomous entities or potentially off-island. The staff have commended to the administration to recognize the hardworking and dedicated government employees by introducing this bill to address the general pay plan and the pay disparity. With this being said, I submit this testimony in support of Bill number 24-37. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Younggirl. Carlos.
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Carlos Pangilinan. I'm a management analyst with the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Here representing myself and my personal capacity to speak in favor of Bill number 24-37. Before I go any further, I just kind of want to stress we're talking about the general pay plan. And what I will go over in my testimony, I'm mostly referring to people that, for example, you could just as easily justify an increase for nurses who are in the nurse pay plan, teachers who you could easily justify raising their compensation because they're teachers and they're in the educator pay plan. There are many people in the government that have specialized pay plans, and you could have so many different factors that would justify increasing them. I'm not talking about people like myself. I'm not even really here. My heart is not in this bill for myself. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. It's not like I'm applying for a job and I want to get above step because I have X number of degrees or I have X number of years working in healthcare finance. I'm just here simply to tell you that I know of at least 40 people, namely eligibility specialists, customer service reps, clerical staff, who work hard every day trying to get well over $300 million in federally funded benefits out to our people who need them. And it's kind of an irony that while we try to shovel out all this federal money out, we're having a hard time responding to people that are seeking those services, because these people are overwhelmed at the Bureau of Economic Security, the people that certify clients for Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, hundreds of millions of dollars poured into this economy every year. 19 vacancies And you'd think, you know, it's not really specialized work. It wouldn't require advanced degrees or anything. So you'd think, you know, it shouldn't be too hard to fill these positions. Guess what? It's actually kind of hard. And I learned that the hard way in the last year being there. It's not an easy job for these people. These are people that are yelled at almost every day. Maybe I'm kind of self-serving because it's a program that I work with, but I'm just letting you know it's a problem. And anything we can do to address that problem probably would go a very long ways toward helping our people. It wouldn't matter if they're government employees or in the private sector. But yeah, that's the only thing I kind of want. I had this all prepared, but I'll just delve off from that because I think that's kind of like the important part of what I have to say to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Senator Taitigui, do you have any questions for the two individuals? These are the last two.
Yes, I noticed that our Director Byrne has left already. I did have some questions for him. Or Shane is not here as well. But first, I want to thank you so much again for being here to testify today and for your advocacy for those who are working very hard in the government of Guam. So I appreciate that. Other than that, Mr. Chair, without Mr. Byrne here, I have no other questions.
Thank you. Senator Fisher?
Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimony. It's important for our consideration. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Chris?
Once again, thank you for being the last panel here. Same thing with me with Ed Byrne. I just wanted to make one point. You know, Carlos, I think that's exactly what Senator Brown was talking about. You know, it is important at those critical junctures to do the above-step recruitment, to identify those critical positions as we go forward. You know, we need to work with the University of Guam. We need to kind of find out, you know, what's the articulation. There are a premier source of educated individuals that want to come forward and stay on Guam and get these jobs, but making sure that entry level and their promotion capabilities keep up and keep the pace. I think that's, in all my 20 years running agencies and the like, that's the way it's been. They've worked up the ladder to get where they needed to be, along with their increments. The other thing is, I think it's important. We don't have to go back as far as 2002, as Senator Brown was talking about, when we put a lot of employees on 32-hour work weeks, when a lot of individuals, you know, were fearing for their jobs, and we were able to get through that. That's the balance we have to continue to take when we look at this in totality of the government going forward, in order to be able to make sure it's sustainable, because we don't want to get where, as Senator Fisher said, we lie to people and we over-obligate what needs to be taken care of, and then we undo what we did if we don't see that it's sustainable. In closing, Mr. Chairman, I've also had several family members and people I care about a lot that have left Island. But they didn't leave Island just for pay. They left Island because of the epidemic of drugs and their homes being invaded and robbed several times, because their kids can't go to schools that they feel that they can get educated in unless they put them in a private school. And because when they go to a hospital, it's falling out on top of their head in terms of flooding and other operational issues that are perennial shortfall. Quality of life is just not about pay, although it is certainly highly ranked and certainly needs addressing. At least these three people that I'm close to, they're in communities now where their kids are in thriving schools. They're getting good health care because one of them, the spouse, is sick. And they're not in the inner cities. I guess the inner cities, some in the States, we see a lot of perennial issues. But they're in a community where if they call a police officer, they're there within minutes, and an ambulance as well. That's what we're addressing here. Yes, we know we've all lost very, very quality members of our families and friends. But I can tell you, having sat across the dinner table with them and been out on hikes and doing different activities with them, it wasn't just because of their pay. They didn't feel safe on Guam anymore. They didn't feel that the healthcare system was adequate enough, and they didn't feel that their children can get an education unless they spent thousands of dollars putting them in private education. That in and of itself would have been a pay raise for them if the schools were operating properly and 3 of their kids weren't costing them $35,000 a year just to go to school. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Luan, do you have any comments or
Yes,
questions for the panel?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Guerrero and Mr. Pangilinan, thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon, as well as the previous panels. It's very important for us to hear, especially us just now coming in for the Roy and myself coming in here, and Senator Fisher as well. So thank you very much again for taking time out to spend your testimony today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Brown. You have any comments or question?
No, I don't have any questions. I certainly appreciate both of you for staying to provide your testimony. And, you know, I think a lot has been said. I think we have a lot to digest, and I wish it was as easy. You know, it's easy to say, oh, sure, we'll give it to you. I've been here long enough. Maybe that's the advantage of time, because I've seen the ups and I've seen the downs, and the downs have lasted a little longer. There's very few years, except because of this pandemic. And a certain percentage, because as we anticipated, as I mentioned before, those of us in the previous administration anticipated the increase of revenue for about a 10-year period, maybe just a little longer because of the military buildup that's currently occurring. But I agree, certainly, Senator Chris, you brought up a lot of points that we hear every day. I mean, you got chastised for looking at our phones, and yet, you know, we have other members of our community, including from off island, watching this hearing, responding as comments are made. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that people might leave Guam, and I agree. I mean, I think all of us can get on a plane today, tomorrow, whatever. But we're here because we want to see how we can make Guam a better community. And I will also tell you, when I first came here back about 29 years ago, because our current younger junior member, I don't think was born yet. Gosh, I could be your mom. The quality of our life has decreased, and I agree with you, and I think that's what we have to address. And how do we address funding that, and is money the only solution to doing that? And how do we prioritize? So when it comes to voting for, you know, how do we support the police officers, how do we support the nurses, how do we support all the other critical positions when there's only so much money on the table to go around? And now, yes, artificially we have a little more, but it's not going to last. And we have to think about that. Yeah, we have to make the tough decisions, and they're not always popular. You can make popular decisions, but who suffers? And I think it's a tough decision to make, but I don't want to be at the other end saying, sure, I'm here for you. Because sometimes those people that make those bad decisions, they're not around to carry the burden. And when I left the legislature, I didn't leave the legislature to join the administration, contrary to some earlier comments that might have been made to infer that some of us jumped ship because we just want to go to the administration. I went back to the University of Guam for 4 years. So I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of input, a lot for us to digest, but I think from all of you, for those of us that have been here and stayed this entire hearing, it's not an easy decision. There's a lot that we have to take into consideration. And also the other people, I appreciate Senator Blas, you're right. Senator Blas, I know, you served on the line out there providing food to people that didn't have food during this pandemic, didn't have jobs that they lost. That's the other reality. You know, sometimes we have a job, maybe it's not the best job, but what about the people that lost their jobs and had children and other obligations? Those lines were long. And even I didn't think, gosh, in our community we would see that, and that was a reality that many of our people are faced with that have left because they lost their jobs. Not because they had the choice to leave, but they didn't have a choice. And I think we need to remember them as well. They're not represented in Gov Guam. And I don't think the government of Guam exists for Gov Guam. We exist to serve our community, and we have to look at the bigger picture and the impacts of decisions we make today, and what are the long-term implications, and are we making Guam better? Or is it just political considerations? And yeah, I'm a political hire. I got no problem. I've been a political hire for many years. I spent my entire government career unclassified. I've had no job security. But that's my choice. It gave me opportunity to do many things, including sitting here in this position. So I'm okay with that. I don't see it as a negative, but it also connotes that, you know, people don't go through the merit system, especially in the government of Guam, to get hired. And that's a concern for those that do. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I have no further comments, and thank you for all of you, including my colleagues that have stayed the duration of this, gosh, almost 4 or 5 hour hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Blas, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the two final panelists, thank you very much. Carlos, thank you very much, because you brought up a very interesting point here that I can appreciate, and maybe a little bit more work needed to be done on this bill before it was presented for the body for consideration, because you're right, it's the difficulties in the retention and everything, and a lot of times it's those people that, okay, so they get into the government, at the bottom of the totem pole, step one, step two. All right, but it brought up an interesting thing. One of the things that I was doing when we're having is I was doing a comparison of what 22% meant for an employee, learning that the pay raise was going to go across the board to include some directors. Okay, and if you look at it, an employee private step one making $24,000 a year, 22% increase would raise his salary to $29,680, $280. Difference of about $5,280, 22%. But if you go to higher spectrum at $150,000 a year, that $150,000 employee is going to get $183,000 a year. You know what that increase amounts to? It comes out to about a $33,000 increase increment, 22%. That $150,000 employee is going to be making more in their 22% increase than a $24,000 employee was going to make in his entirety. You want to talk about disparity? Just in that. So I think there should have been a little bit more discussion on how this thing was gone. Because was said earlier, one of my colleagues here, we're not going to lie to you. And one of the things we have to do on this body, with this body, is we have to put everything out, good, bad, and ugly. Because we own it. And then we have to report back to you. And with regards to a comment that was earlier made about, none of the individuals here on the panel, or none of the senators, never did anything when the pandemic came out, and as far as assistance, I stood there and fed over 5,000 families before a comment was made within the government, oh, we didn't know we had a food drive. And I was assisted by a lot of these colleagues here. So we are doing our jobs. And one of our jobs sometimes is making decisions that aren't popular. But we have to make sure we get it right. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blas. Senator Cananta, do you have any comments or question for the two?
No. That is all. Thank you guys for all your hard work, and please keep it up. Have a great day. God bless.
Thank you, Ms. Guerrero and Mr. Pangilinan, for showing up today. Thank you very much. There being no additional individuals to present further testimony on Bill 24-37 COR, the committee will receive testimony for the next few days. And please submit that written testimony to my email at senatorjoesanaugustin@gmail.com or submit it to the mailroom at the Guam Legislature. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending this public hearing and for providing feedback and suggestion. Bill number 24-37 CR is duly heard by the committee, and the public hearing is now adjourned. The time now is 1:43. And please have a nice day. Thank you.